Now. 2 balls and a strike to count on Taylor. Reyes fires, swinging a drive, deep left field. It's his way back. Welcome up, Taylor.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into DodgerHeads Live, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined tonight on a Saturday night off night. Matthew Moreno here to break down everything from last night, everything from tomorrow. But Matt, let's start with the baseball story that's in front of us. The New York Yankees headed to the World Series.
Yeah, I think there was a loud celebration in New York, not just from Yankees fans, but also the league office. I think you know getting the Yankees back into the World Series is certainly of interest to certain maybe television partners, maybe business deals and things of that nature. But no, I mean, credit to the Yankees. Obviously, you know, that Guardian series, there were some wild swings, both literally and figuratively, in the 5 games that they played. And, you know, Juan Soto hitting that home run on that type of pitch was pretty amazing.
Yeah, that series is, I mean, going and looking at like Emmanuel Clase's regular season stats and then what he turned into, unfortunately, for the Guardians in the postseason is insane. 5 earned runs all season, 2 home runs all season. He gave up 2 home runs in 1 appearance. I believe he gave up 6 runs in this series. The bullpen gives up 6 home runs total. Crazy stuff in that series. So again, New York versus New York or New York versus LA, a pair of dream scenarios, as I posted on social media for Major League Baseball. We've got a super chat from Grayson right off the top. Is there more added pressure for the Dodgers now that the Yankees advanced? The world needs New York versus LA. Is there more pressure on the Dodgers, Matt, now that the Yankees, who went up 3-1, handled their business, and the other iconic franchise on the East Coast has punched their ticket?
I don't think so. I mean, you know, the Dodgers, and I think it's a testament to the Dodgers being their own kind of pillar organization of their own. And that was redundant, so I apologize there. But, you know, whether the Yankees were in the World Series or not, like, I don't think it changes anything from the Dodgers perspective. For the fans, sure, maybe there's a little bit more disappointment. But honestly, even that, like, if the Dodgers don't reach the World Series at this point, I think we're skipping disappointment and going straight to anger. And I can't even imagine what these 2 post-game shows would be like these next 2 nights.
Well, I was thinking, as we sit here on Saturday night, I will not be on Sunday night. I will be on potentially, I can't remember if I'm on Monday night, but I'm in the mix potentially on Monday night. So it's possible. It's possible there's a world where this is the last show I get while the Dodgers are still alive. And so it's just crazy to think about. I mean, and before we get into anything else, Matt, I'm just curious, where are you at from a confidence perspective with this team? Obviously, they go up 3-1, Jack Flaherty on the mound. I think that was probably the pinnacle of confidence for most people, feeling good about the guy who threw 7 shutout in this series, up 3-1, knowing that even if they lost, they had 2 games at home. Of course, they lose in really brutal fashion. Now you've got bullpen game Walker Buehler, albeit both of those games at home. Where are you at confidence-wise?
Still relatively confident, and it's a mixture of not being all that high on the Yankees, on the Mets going into this series anyway. I did think the Dodgers would close it out in 5. I was feeling pretty good about that heading into Game 5. And I know, you know, we're going to get into kind of the pitching plan, and we'll get an opportunity to sort of rewind so that I can give some thoughts on Game 5 and what happened there. But, you know, the pitching is a little concerning from the Dodgers standpoint, but, you know, the bullpen has been a strength all year, or not for most of the year, and definitely throughout the playoffs. And so, you know, there's reason to be optimistic there. Although how Dave Roberts uses said bullpen in Game 6, it could significantly impact my level of confidence. And I know we'll get into that.
Yeah, Richard with another super chat. Dave better not get cute tomorrow. He scares me, which is a perfect segue, Richard, into let's go back to last night. It's been 24 hours. Anthony and I did the post-game show. You, of course, were not on, so it's your first opportunity, as you said, to share your thoughts. Let me set the stage, because I think, you know, I was joking with Anthony. I was like, we could talk about Ohtani not scoring. We could talk about 100 different things. The only thing that matters is how Dave Roberts handled the 3rd inning with Jack Flaherty. So let me set the stage, give some context, and then allow you to tell me kind of where you think Dave either made right decisions or wrong decisions. So it's the top of the 3rd inning. The Mets are up 3-1, and the 4, 5, and 6 hitters in the Mets lineup were due up. Flaherty, up until this point, had 2 innings, 4 hits, 3 earned, 2 walks, no strikeouts. The velocity was down. He was getting no swing and miss. On the offensive side, the Dodgers had scored 1 run, but they had stranded runners at second and third in the first. They stranded runners at first and second in the second, and they stranded 1 runner at third. One other piece of information that I think is helpful and needs to be mentioned here when we talk about the bullpen is Blake Treinen had pitched in both of the 2 games prior to Game 5. In Game 3 and Game 4, he had pitched in both of those. And Evan Phillips, who didn't pitch in Game 3, threw 34 pitches the night before in Game 4. So if we're going to factor in some of the bullpen stuff, you have that. Dave, I think, has 3 decisions to make in succession here. Decision 1 is, does Jack Flaherty go back out for the 3rd inning? And I'm going to set it up like this. I didn't prep you for this, so bear with me here. Decision number 1 was bottom of the 3rd inning, 4, 5, and 6 due up. In your estimation, should Jack Flaherty have started that inning?
Yeah, I thought that was fine. I didn't think, in terms of the level of egregiousness with some of these decisions, that one ranks pretty low, if not on the lowest. Yeah. And I know that he was struggling, but the game hadn't gotten away yet. And regardless, either because you're playing the 3rd game in as many days without an off day, and or looking ahead to the potential, Game 6 and a possible Game 7, like trying to squeeze what you could out of Flaherty, I understood and was okay with at that point.
Then he goes walk. And now you've got decision number 2 with Starling Marte up. At this point, Dave Roberts decides to leave Jack Flaherty in, of course. In your estimation, was that the right decision? Obviously, we know it backfired, but in real time, knowing what you know, would you have kept him in at that point?
No, that's where I would have said, okay, like we need to figure something out. And I honestly, I don't know if I would have let him walk the second batter. I think after walking the leadoff guy, it was the leadoff guy, right? He didn't.
Yeah, he walked the first 2.
So after the leadoff walk, I probably am making a pitching change at that point. And for me, I pull a lot of that from just the philosophy. And I think one thing that needs to be understood with what we're discussing, what you and Anthony discussed on last night's show, is there aren't necessarily quote unquote right or wrong decisions in this scenario. Like there's not anything that really like, oh my gosh,
it's not 100% right or 100% wrong. It tends to live in the 65-35 to 51-49 range.
Right. So then for me, it comes down to just kind of philosophy and what you sort of think. And I fully understand the need to, some of the limitations maybe based on bullpen usage the night before, some of the limitations moving forward. Like I get that, but similar to Game 2, like my argument is, and my philosophy, it's the play. Like this isn't the regular season where, it's the middle of June, it's a Wednesday afternoon game, and the Dodgers are deciding, you know what, we're just going to punt this, see what happens. If we come back, great. If we lose it, we travel tomorrow to such and such city and we start another series and we keep going. Like, it's the playoffs. And I know I expressed this before, like tomorrow isn't necessarily guaranteed. And in this case, fine. Like, yes, the Dodgers literally knew they would have a Game 6, but beyond that, like you need to be careful. And like, that's for me, the philosophy of whether it's a full punt or a soft punt, doing that in the playoffs is a dangerous game in my opinion. And I'm not saying that you needed to pull Jack Flaherty and go to Blake Treinen again, like push him in that scenario. But Anthony Banda clearly factored into the plans yesterday.
Yeah.
Maybe try him. If he keeps it close, then that can impact. Like, you don't know what happens after that. If the Mets don't blow the game open, does I don't know why their starting pitcher's name is escaping me right now. Peterson.
David Peterson. Come on, show some respect to the Oregon
Duck. Yeah, that's
Matt.
right. My apologies. If he starts to feel, the Dodgers were getting traffic on the bases, right? He wasn't going 3 up, 3 down every inning. And so does he start to feel like, oh man, I need to, really be perfect here type thing? Like, you don't know what the scenarios are. And again, I'm not going to sit here and say, had it been somebody other than Flaherty staying in the game, the Dodgers definitely win. But, considering what we saw from the offense, like you could see kind of the pathway to that being the case. And Dave Roberts went into that game stressing urgency, wanting to close it out, this and that, like saying all the right things. And then I felt like his decision-making was completely the opposite of that.
Last question I'll ask you. He leaves Flaherty in. He gives up the 2-run double to Starling Marte. Now it's 5-1. They had Bonda warming, presumably to face Jeff McNeil, lefty. So he gets a line out after the double. I think that was the third decision where now Dave is down 5-1. There's a runner on third base. There's 2 outs, and he's now making 1 out. and he's now making the decision of what to do with Flaherty. At that point, we already missed checkpoint number 2. At that point, did you still think there was time for Dave to go to a reliever, keep this game at 5-1, potentially with a runner on third? Or did you feel like, hey, he had missed the window at that point, the ship has sailed, and now we're just punting?
Once it got to that point, I figured, okay, like, fine. Like, you're just going to punt this one, like, whatever. Like, I still, like, again, like, I don't agree with that in the playoffs. I think doing it once in a series is dangerous. Doing it twice, like, isn't, like, is even more, ill-advised. But yeah, once it got to that point, I just kind of thought, okay, well, fine. At this point, to me, like, if you're sticking with Flaherty, like, get him through 5 innings, then figure out a way, like, tell him, look, I know you're sick, apparently. Like, it came out
maybe
after
or maybe
the game.
not, depending on who you ask. If you ask Flaherty and Dave Roberts, you get 2 different answers.
But hey, we need 5 innings at this point.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing, and I had forgotten that Phillips had thrown 34 pitches the night before, so whether or not he was, I mean, it's the NLCS, he probably was available. The Dodgers probably were going to try to do everything in their power not to have to go to him, and so to eat 7 innings without trying to go to Trinan or Phillips, who are your 2 best relievers, I can understand the roadmap. Again, we're going to put this behind us now. I wanted to give Matt a chance to share his thoughts. Everybody who was on here last night knows that I was questioning the decision even to send him back out. Matt and I and Anthony are all in alignment that after 1 walk, if not 2, he definitely has to come out of that game because you take nothing for granted. That said, I understand Dave, and I thought he articulated post-game well what I think was the alternative position, which was, hey, my goal is to win 4 games out of 7. My goal is not necessarily like my life did not depend on winning game 5. My life depends on my coaching career might depend on winning 4 out of 7. And this was what he felt like gave them the best chance. And whether he's right or wrong, in some ways we will never know. But if the Dodgers win game 6 or game 7, guess what? All of this is going to be forgotten and we will move on and head to the World Series and talk about it. So let's talk about game 6, Matt. We've got a super chat here from Larry asking any thoughts on Phillips or Kopech opening game 6. We know that the Dodgers are going with the bullpen game. That much has been said. Dave Roberts spoke today and said everybody is available except for Yamamoto. That was clarified. Shohei Ohtani also not available, by the way. Those were the 2 clarifying questions he got. They need 27 outs, Matt. Let me read you the pitchers that the Dodgers have available tonight. This is in sort of tiered order of guys that I trust. At the top, you've got Evan Phillips, who will have had 2 days off. Kopech, who's had a bunch of days off. Trinan, 2 days off at the top. Then you've got Hudson and Bonda, I would put in the 2nd tier. Again, multiple days off. Ryan Brazier, 3rd tier. Ben Kasparius, 4th tier. And then Knack, Enriquez, and Honeywell, I would put in the 5th tier. That's 10 guys who need to combine to get you 9 innings one way or another. We'll start with Larry's question. Who starts this game? It has historically been Ryan Brazier the 2 times they've gone to a bullpen game. Ryan Brazier has not drummed up confidence so far in this series. Would you go back to Brazier, or would a guy like Kopech possibly be in the mix?
I don't hate the Kopech idea, but I don't know if it's something that I necessarily do.
Okay.
I think it'll end up being Brazier again. It's a role that he's comfortable in. I think honestly, we would be if Brusdar Graterol was healthy, we would be seeing him making these quote unquote starts. I think the other thing we need to factor too with this decision is not only matchups, but also level of comfort with making a start. And as much as a relief, Brazier treats it as like a bullpen appearance type thing. Like he's not necessarily like a traditional starting pitcher coming into the dugout and then going out to the mound. I don't know, with Kopech although Kopech, he is a former starting pitcher. I think he also expressed some
I think Kopech's giving us 6 innings tomorrow, Matt. I think he's just riding it. He's going to give us a full start.
Yeah, perhaps. He did express interest in getting back to, a starting rotation role. But I don't see the Dodgers, considering he hasn't necessarily filled that type of role with the Dodgers. I don't think now is the time that they would make that aggressive of a change.
Yeah, I'm with you. I see some people, some people in the chat that are talking about possibly Anthony Bonda. Lindor, who is lefty, who bats leadoff, actually has a higher OPS against lefties than he does against righties. So I don't think they're going to go with Bonda, especially if then they can stack Vientos and Pete Alonso potentially right after that. Even Nimmo, who bats left-handed as well, doesn't really have dramatic splits. So none of these guys are like, oh man, we've got to get the lefty in to face them. So I think I think Brazier seems like the obvious choice. And yet, man, I felt a lot better about Ryan Brazier a week ago, Matt, than I do today.
Yeah,
I mean,
I agree.
He's been all over the place. He got bailed out with a double play in his last one after giving up the home run to Lindor in game 2. I mean, everyone wants to focus on Knack, rightfully so, and we don't have to rehash that, although I'm sure we will here in just a moment. But let's not forget that Ryan Brazier started that game off by giving up a leadoff home run to the very guy that he would be facing in the leadoff spot tomorrow night. So you're still leaning Brazier, but I mean, what about Hudson? Is Daniel Hudson a guy? He's kind of one of those, maybe not a top tier guy, but maybe somebody that you feel, I mean, he's a tier above Brazier to me. And if I'm hoping I only have to see the top of the order 4 times in a game, maybe wishful thinking, but Hudson's one of the 4 guys I would want facing that group.
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting option as well, and he's like Kopech, another former starter or kind of early on in his career. So I wouldn't be opposed to that. I would prefer Hudson more so than Kopech and Phillips, and that's to Larry's question. The reason for that is, like, as much as I do believe in getting off to a strong start in the first inning and holding them at scoreless to give the Dodgers a chance to score the first run, this and that, like, there is value to that. I don't know if that value outweighs outweighs having Phillips and Kopech for arguably, more high leverage scenarios that are surely to come about as the game sort of progresses.
Yeah, 4 base runners allowed by Ryan Brazier in 2 appearances. He allowed a hit and a walk in both of his 2 outings, just 1 strikeout. I do see some people in the chat mentioning Ben Kasparius, who is a starter, has pitched out of the bullpen in this one, but most of his appearances this year in the minor leagues were as a starter. I understand the sentiment. He looked good the one time we've seen him in this series. There's no way, right? Like, there's no way he faces the top. I could see him being in that Knack role and coming into the second inning of a game, Matt. But I can't possibly see Kasparius being the guy who gets the ball to start the game against their 3 or 4 best hitters.
Yeah, I mean, so should we just fully dive into what Dave Roberts has said about Game 6? Because I like going back a little bit to Game 5. Dave saying I needed to save the bullpen, this, that, and the other, suggests, and maybe it was my fault for assuming, that their bullpen game for Game 6 was going to be what we saw in the NLDS against the Padres, Game 4.
Okay.
Not what we saw in Game 2 against the Mets, which was an opener followed by a bulk option who was Landon Knack, and then figuring out, where things go.
Allegedly a bulk option in Landon Knack. We'll never know if he was really actually a bulk option or not.
True. Dave Roberts tonight during the Dodgers workout at the stadium, and we have the video up on our YouTube channel, so you guys can definitely, if you're on YouTube with us right now, you can stick around and watch it after the fact. If not, come over to YouTube. So it's a little bit of a shameless plug there for our channel. Dave said that it was going to be more or less along the lines of Game 2 against the Mets rather than what they did against the Padres. He did then sort of backtrack a little bit when he was kind of pressed about, how high leverage guys would factor into the game.
Let me pause you real quick, because I do think that talk to us a little bit about how he explained that. Like, when he was asked about that specifically, his answer was something along the lines of, like, we're going to try the same thing and we're just going to expect better execution, right?
Yes. So to me, like, that is, we're going opener and then we're going a bulk guy. And now, did he say Landon Knack?
Again, Landon Knack was technically may not have been a bulk guy in Game 2, right? Like, I mean, that's us reading into it as a starter. But, like, if you ask, we don't have any proof that they believed him to be a bulk guy, right?
We would have to take Dave's word for it, because he did say, like, the expectation the expectation was for Knack to get the majority of the outs that day.
Got it. Okay, got it. My bad.
But again, I mean, the Dodgers apparently are big on gamesmanship when it suits them at times. So who knows, right? Well, and we'll get into that with Freddie Freeman, and some of the comments and how things have sort of changed there.
So
But
there was a
Dave,
follow-up question to Dave on the plan of, hey, we're just going to try the same thing in game 2.
right. And then he said, no, like actually, like, yes, we can be more aggressive with our high leverage guys as opposed to, in game 2, like clearly, like we're saving them, if not completely against using them.
Yeah.
Now, Dave Roberts did not say Landon Knack specifically would be the bulk guy. If the Dodgers are indeed kind of going to do a rerun of game 2, it could be Ben Kasparius, I guess, in theory. Those are pretty much the only two options that I could see the Dodgers relying on for 9 outs type thing,
Yeah.
even 7 or 8 outs. Where I don't understand that is you just told us you couldn't use X, Y, and Z relief pitchers in game 5 because you needed them for game 6, and now game 6 is on the horizon, and you're saying, actually, we're going to try and do the bulk thing again. Which, look, Landon Knack was he would be the first to, he did admit, like, he was terrible against the Mets. Overall, he did have a better season than what we saw in his NLCS debut, if you will. He is also somebody who has in the past shown an ability to bounce back after a poor appearance. So, like, do I think Landon Knack is incapable of pitching, quality innings for the Dodgers? No. Like, I think he could, keep the Mets to 1 or 2 runs or scoreless, depending on, how things shake out. I don't think it's a complete, like, white flag that Landon Knack is possibly going to be pitching the game. So I want to make that clear.
Yeah.
That being said, he's not better than the high leverage options that the Dodgers have that we were just told needed to be protected because of this game.
Yeah.
And so those two things, like, not to fully rehash game 5, but those, like, then I get even more frustrated and I'm less, like, understanding and forgiving of the strategy when then now you're saying, well, no, we can't actually go straight to those guys yet. We need to do the bulk thing again. And look, we could get to game 6 tomorrow and Dave Roberts pivots and it's a repeat of the NLDS bullpen game and not what we saw earlier in the NLCS. Would I be completely surprised? No, because like I said, the Dodgers apparently, like, they pick and choose when they want to, do the gamesmanship stuff.
Yeah. So here's what I would say. And I see Rebecca in the chat. If Dave uses Knack in anything less than 10-0, just no. Totally agree. And I am always like, I understand the sentiment completely. And I'm gonna make the same case now that I'm gonna make when we have a Freddie Freeman conversation, which is totally get it. You don't want to see Landon Knack. How are the Dodgers going to get 27 outs tomorrow then if Landon Knack is not a part of it? Because here's what I would say to you. There are 5 pitchers in the Dodgers bullpen that I trust right now. That if they came into a game, pretty much in any scenario, I would have some degree of confidence. That would be Phillips, Kopech, Trinan, Hudson, and Bonda. Those would be the 5 guys that I feel decent about. And again, Brazier would have been in this category a week ago, but he's given up 4 base runners in 2 innings to this particular team, so he's out. Okay, so that's 5. Those 5 can't get you 27 outs. The 5 guys I just mentioned. Like, I mean, even if we're doing 4 to 5 outs per, we're still talking about an inning or 2 that needs to be on top of. And I would add, that's assuming that all 5 guys I just mentioned are basically perfect, because there's no guarantee those 5 are even getting you 3 outs, because if they put a couple guys on, get a couple outs, pitch count starts to move, it's a tight game, right? You see what I'm saying? Like, even if those guys are perfect, I still think we're at best talking about 6 to 7 innings for those 5 guys, which then leaves you to a tier of Brazier and a guy I know a lot of people like, which is Ben Kasparius. But let's say you get 6 innings from the top 5. Now you need 9 more outs from Ryan Brazier, Ben Kasparius, Landon Knack, Edgardo Enriquez, and Brett Honeywell. All I'm trying to say here, Matt, is that, like, at some point the Dodgers are going to have to plug their nose and put a guy into a game that we don't love. At some point. And you hope that they can find a time to do it with, like, the 6th guy in the lineup due up and the Dodgers up by a couple runs and it's early. Like, we all hope for that. But I'm just saying, we can say no Knack, okay, and we can say we like Kasparius, which is fine. But at some point, Brazier or Kasparius or somebody is going to come up and need to get them a bunch of outs in a big spot because the math says it has to happen.
Yeah, and that's fine. I think, though, there's still some wiggle room. Like, at that point, you want to reduce
totally
the amount of outs you're going to need from the guys that you don't necessarily trust as much.
Totally.
The other wrinkle to all of this is there is no guarantee the Dodgers win game 6.
Yeah.
And if they don't, they're going to need their bull. You and I are on the Walker Buehler train. We have said, hey, like he can get there, he can help them in the playoffs type of thing. I think you and I would probably, I don't want to speak for you, so you could correct me if I'm wrong. We'd probably also agree he's not necessarily going 6 innings in a potential game 7, right?
Yeah,
We haven't
it's not
really seen
Yamamoto in game 5 levels of confidence.
right. And so now you're in a scenario where, yes, like you're saying, like the bullpen, how you're going to get all these outs, like is a little tricky. And you also need to potentially save guys for a game 7.
Yeah.
Which then goes back to my original point of why are you so willingly, so easily punting a game 5?
Yeah.
And back to your original point, I think, if you could find I think in an ideal world, Ryan Brazier gets, assuming he's the opener, which has not been announced as we're recording this, but assuming that it is Brazier, maybe he gets them 4 outs this time, like basically a repeat of his NLDS start, right?
Yeah.
Where he gets them 4 outs. That way it's 1+ inning. Then maybe you use.
That's when and again, this is where people get mad. But like, if Brazier can get you through the first 5 guys in the order, and you have 1 out in the second, and 6, 7, 8, and 9 due up, like that's where I would go to Kasperius, because that's going to be the lowest leverage moment of the entire game, most likely, because it's the bottom of the order, and it's early in the game, and you can still react and respond accordingly moving forward. That's my 2 cents, but that's why I got crushed for saying I didn't hate where they deployed Landon Knack. I hated how long they left him in, but I didn't hate where they deployed him.
Yeah, and that's fair. I mean, I guess I don't know. Yeah, it's tough. Like, do you maybe go Edgardo Henriquez to finish the second inning, maybe start the third, and then it's Kasperius? Like, yes.
Does Henriquez have a scoreless outing in any playoff appearance?
Yeah, I don't. You hope that his velocity will, and the sliders and stuff will get him through at that point. I mean, there is.
And again, this is where I say you got to plug your nose. Like, here's the question, and I'll phrase it this way. So if Phillips, Kopech, Treinen, Hudson, and Banda, let's say best case scenario, you get like 6 1/3 out of that group. If you need 8 outs from Ryan Brazier, so you just said, hey, good scenario, we get 4. Okay, so now you need 4 outs from Kasperius or Knack or Henriquez or Honeywell. Are you just?
Well, I mean, Honeywell, I think we can take off the list.
Well, Dave told me everybody was available, Matt.
Right, that's right. My apologies.
Are you doubting Dave giving us accurate information on the health and availability of his pitchers?
Yeah, my read on Honeywell saving the bullpen means he's not available until a possible game 7. And I think, honestly, the reality is there's a decent chance they're maybe saving one of Kasperius or Knack for the game 7 as well. Like, you need, like, as good as Walker Buehler, as nice of moments that Walker Buehler has had, like, you can't really count on more than 5 innings from him, I don't think.
Yeah, but I think with a day off and not using any of those guys, with 2 days off, I don't think there's really a number where in game 7 of the end, like Phillips, I just mentioned, in game 4 threw 34 pitches. If Phillips throws 34 pitches tomorrow, he's available in game 7. There's no way you're not going to him in NLCS game 7.
Sure, but we know, like, we know the Dodgers are going to do everything they can to kind of protect themselves as much. But again, this conversation, like, this is why, even if you want to go back to game 2, like, that's why you don't give games away. Because if you had won game 2, you went to New York all of a sudden only needing to win 2 out of 3, which guess what? They ended up doing. And the series would be over. We would be stuck. We'd be discussing, hey, the Yankees, those fan bases, if they're watching this, are going to hate me. I keep getting the New York teams mixed up. Not making any friends in New York tonight. The Yankees, have punched their ticket to the World Series. Let's start looking ahead. But, here we are. And so that's, I don't know. I don't want to keep repeating myself, but that's where, that you don't give games away in the playoffs, short of it got to 10-1 in the blink of an eye, and we're mailing this one in.
Yeah. Henriquez, apologies to him, by the way. He had a scoreless appearance in the 10-2 victory over the Mets. So he's gone 5 innings, 8 hits, 4 earned, 3 walks. So 11 base runners in 5 innings with 4 earned runs for Edgardo Henriquez. Let's close out this portion of the conversation with this question from Gabriel Fernandez. What's our confidence level? We close it out tomorrow. Sean Manaea on the mound, who I have tried my hardest to debunk the myth that exists inside of many Dodger fans' heads that Sean Manaea is the greatest pitcher of all time. The guy gave up 6 base runners in 5 innings. He gave up 3 runs. The Dodgers started to see him well and get to him. He walked 4 guys. Like, Manaea is good. He's not like, I don't know, the Cy Young Award winner that's walking through those doors. So Scale of one. Well, let me ask you this. Yeah. Give me your confidence level heading into game 5 that they were going to close it out, and give me your confidence level now in game 6.
Should I put this on like a scale of 0 to 10?
Yeah. Let's
type
say
thing?
0 to 10. Like going into game 5, how confident were you that the series was going to end that night?
That was probably like an 8.
Okay. And where are we at now? Game 6.
Like a 5 or 6 for game 6.
Okay. Yeah, I would say I was probably around, I can't remember what I said. I think I got asked this question and I said like 6.5, 7, 7.5, somewhere in that range. I'd say I'm at a 6. Like look, one thing I'm trying to do, and here's where I'll be the optimist here for a second. I think sometimes we can so overreact to one, like to such a small sample size of what we just saw, because everything is so magnified and so important. A week ago, if you would have said, Jeff, you need to win one game, the Dodgers need to win one game, and you can have any pitching setup possible, what would you choose? I tweeted that bullpen game is the best option that the Dodgers have to win a game. That was last Friday, 8 days ago. I said that. Now, I know we saw game 2, and now like we're all off the bullpen game train because Landon Knack was really, really bad. So the optimist in me says, why can't these guys pitch the same way they did 8 days ago? Like, and again, and you could keep going and saying Phillips, Kopech, Trinan, Hudson, Bonda, like these guys have all continued to be good. Brazier's tailed off. Vesia's not here. Like, there are some reasons for it, but I just, a week ago, I loved bullpen games. One bad bullpen game and now I'm off. Like, I need to almost talk myself into going back to how confident I was in this group 5 days ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think for that, like, not all bullpen games are created equally. And again, like I said earlier, as much as there is, I think, valid reason for some concern with Landon Knack, we also have seen him bounce back after struggling in a start, and then he pitches well the next time out. And so, is it possible that happens again? Yes. I think for me, what diminishes, some level of concern, and even, going into the Padres game with the bullpen game there, is you still are going to be using, upwards of 5 to 7, maybe 8 relief pitchers.
Yeah.
And you need a lot of things to go right. And if 1 or 2 go wrong, then it's very easy for that to just blow up in your face, as obviously the Dodgers learned against the Mets. And so it's not so much that there's doubt in the bullpen. It's just that that's a lot of moving parts that need to be synced up, and credit to those guys out there, the group of relief pitchers, whether it's regular season or now the playoffs, like for the most part, they have answered the bell. And so, there is reason to be optimistic. Without that, like most bullpen games for other teams, your level of confidence is probably like a 3 or 4. You're thinking, oh man, like this is going to be the worst thing ever. We better score 15 runs and this and that. And that's not necessarily the case with the Dodgers. It's just, for me, like I am a little hesitant in trusting how they're going to try to piece it together. I know that there are some limitations, but that also ties back to, hey, take care of business earlier in the series so you're not in this position. Yeah. You are now. And so, it's just a matter of figuring it out.
Well, and let's keep in mind, they're up 3-2 with 2 home games ahead of them. Like, so, like, even as you say, like, hey, now you're in this position, I'm like, this is a pretty damn good position to be in, all things considered, up 3-2. By the way, they're at home. That's a factor that has changed from game 5 to game 6. They had a day to flush it. Here's the other thing, Matt, the offense is scoring 7.2 runs per game in this series. So when we talk about a bullpen game, I do think there's this sense that when we evaluate them and when we project it, it's like, oh man, they need to be perfect. They need to be perfect. They don't need to be perfect. They just need to be like, when I say like, oh, these first 5 guys need to be perfect, it's like, I don't know, 4 out of 5 need to be good, and we'll probably be fine. Because if the Dodgers offense continues the run that they are on and can put up even 6 runs, like if I told you the Dodgers are going to score 6 runs tomorrow, Matt, like give me a scale of 1 to 10 confidence that the bullpen can allow less than 6 runs and get the win.
Probably about an 8, maybe even 9.
Yeah, 8.5, right? That's what I'm saying. So like that is the offense that we've seen. And I know it's Manaea, who they've already seen and who they kind of got to, but it just where I'm at. Just where I'm at. Those are the reasons for optimism. They're at home. Offense is scoring 7.2 runs per game. And a week ago, we all loved this bullpen. So add all those up. There's your reasons for optimism, folks. Speaking of reasons for pessimism, though, let's talk about some injuries and ask a question, Matt, that everybody's been asking. By the way, thanks to everybody joining us live, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter on a Saturday night, 9 p.m., almost 2,800 people in here. We greatly appreciate it. I'll be perfectly honest, Matt. I am not saying this is not a value statement on anybody that is asking this question. I am surprised we are having a conversation about whether or not Freddie Freeman should be playing. I am surprised we are having this conversation. I know how bad he looked last game. I know the mobility is limited. I know all of it. I'm still surprised. Are you surprised we're having this conversation?
Not necessarily, but then, as we were kind of getting ready to start this, when you pose it from, okay, well, who else? And then you sort of think it through and you realize, oh, well, yeah, those are the different options. Then yes, it does surprise me because as we're going to get into some of the different scenarios, I'm sure the fans and the people who are with us right now live aren't going to necessarily like them.
Let's talk about that real quick, because this is my counter, and I shared this with you before we came on. When people say, hey, Freddie Freeman shouldn't be playing, we already know Gavin Lux is not going to be starting in Game 6. Dave has revealed that. So Kike Hernandez is playing second base. I think it's a pretty safe bet that Andy Pages is going to be in center field, based on the fact that he just hit 2 home runs in the last game. So if Freddie Freeman comes out of this game, there's 3 people on the bench who could potentially come into the game. Austin Barnes, we know that's not happening because he's either starting at catcher or not playing at all. Kevin Kiermaier, well, where does Kiermaier play if Pages is playing center field? You could get creative and Pages goes to right and Mookie goes to second. Neither of us think that's going to happen. If Freddie Freeman doesn't play, the likely scenario is Chris Taylor is playing either second base or third base with Kike playing the other. That to me is the entire crux of what are we talking about here? Freddie Freeman he could be missing the lower half of his leg. He could be trying to learn how to walk on a prosthetic in real time, Matt. And I would take my chances with Freddie Freeman over Chris Taylor in this game.
I mean, I don't know where to go with this because the Freddie Freeman we're seeing, like, first of all, credit to Freddie for doing what it takes to even, be in the lineup for these games and to keep playing. Like, his ankle is messed up. You can see it in his lack of mobility and agility and all that stuff. And his at-bats. I mean, I know that first line drive in the first inning, he did make solid contact, but really it's few and far between. Part of me, what I worry about though too, and this I think again, kind of sort of with the earlier discussion on how you would approach saving a bullpen, which with using guys, a little bit of philosophy based, like how much do you value or get concerned about the defensive aspect?
Yeah,
there were a couple balls hit to first base in Game 5 that I thought a normal Freeman probably makes. Now, does Max Muncy make those plays? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe half of them. And maybe it doesn't make a difference. Maybe it does. Like, who knows, right? Like, I have to go back and watch which each one happened and who scored and what it led to and this and that. But I think, like, that's kind of my concern. And it's not like Freddie, like, it's not like he was at first still getting hits, just not necessarily hitting for power. Like, right now, there's just not a whole lot there. And so I could be talked into our video intro ends with Chris Taylor hitting a walk-off home run in the wild card game. I could be talked into, hey, like, Dodgers are deciding to start Chris Taylor. He's healthier right now, saving Freddie Freeman for a big at-bat. And I know that sort of contradicts everything I just said about him not being able to really contribute.
Yeah, that's the irony. All the people that want him not in, they're like, no, we need him for later in a big spot. It's like, you just told me you think he sucks.
I do think though that, and maybe I'm just trying to justify it, that it would be different of coming off the bench, not necessarily like, hey, I need to grind through one really painful at bat right now to get a hit, rather than I've been playing 6 innings and now my spot is up in the lineup again here in the bottom of the 7th. And my ankle is completely shot because I've been on it all night. And, maybe I jumped up at first base to make a play and stuff like that. Like, I do think that those are different kind of conversations and obstacles to sort of clear.
Yeah.
But I mean, look, do I think I know Dave after Game 5 said, yes, he was going to talk to him because his at-bats and stuff weren't looking great. And then he was asked about it tonight and he said, no, I haven't talked to him, but I think I expect him to be in the lineup until I hear otherwise. So I would expect Freeman to be in, or at least, I mean, I think it's going to come down to if he's any worse than what we've seen, then he won't play. But if he is at least at the level that he's been at the past few days physically, then the Dodgers aren't going to say, oh, actually, no, we're going to sit you right now.
2 things on Freddie Freeman. One on defense. Mobility range, obviously compromised. No disagreement whatsoever. And as much as I know Max Muncy has been critiqued defensively, he will absolutely have more range. Now, are we going from like a C- to a C+. I don't know. Somebody else can map that out. Two things that Freddie does defensively, though, that need to be mentioned. The Dodgers failed to turn a double play that was a bang-bang play at first base. And Max Muncy did not do a great job. That's not his primary position of getting off of the bag and stretching to go and catch that ball. I think that's an out if Freddie Freeman's playing first base. He has also made multiple timely, critical picks on balls in the dirt at first base. And I think it's easy to look at some of the things he can't do and forget that those two things he has continued to do even with an ankle injury. It's also worth mentioning when he came up with runners in second and third and one out in the first inning, he lined a ball 96 miles an hour. It just happened to be right at the first baseman. So it's not like all the exit velocity, all the power has completely been sapped. Again, I'm not making a case that Freddie Freeman as is a great player. It's the same as the Dave Roberts conversation. It's the same as the Landon Knack conversation in the sense that, okay, who are we replacing them with? Like, and if the answer is, and you do the math and you're like, hey, would you like Chris Taylor or Freddie Freeman to be in the lineup tomorrow, knowing that Taylor's going to play second base or third base versus Freddie Freeman at first base, given his limitations? It's like 95 Freddie Freeman, 5% Chris Taylor in my book. Because I'm just, again, I've said it before. I will just take my chances that in a big moment, if Freddie Freeman has the opportunity to come through with the hit, I still feel decent about his chances to slap something to left field or to pull something to right. I just do. I know how bad it has looked. But if you're asking me to catch lightning in a bottle, I'll take my chances with one of the greatest hitters in the game, even if the ankle's compromised. Is just where I land.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think I'm not necessarily as convinced on the as big of a disparity, I think, as you are. I think it's closer, not quite a toss-up, but I think it's closer to that. Again, just because of the severity of Freeman's injury. And hey, I think there's also, tell me if you've heard this line of thinking before. There's some value in maybe saving Freddie Freeman for a possible game 7 where, you know, if your season's on the line, he's had a couple days to rest and now he's really available. I don't know if the Dodgers have ever done something like that before. I can't imagine that they would kind of look ahead to a potential game before taking care of the game right in front of them. But if they were to consider something like that, maybe that's what that factors into some of the thinking with Freddie Freeman.
Chris Taylor has reached in 3 of his 7 plate appearances in the NLCS against the Mets. 1 for 4 with a walk. He was got a walk in and the Dodgers are also undefeated, by the way, in games that Chris Taylor's appeared in. I'm bearing the lead here, Matt. He has only played in the games that the Dodgers have won. He was 0 for 1. Then he was 0 for 0 with a walk, and then he was 1 for 4 with a walk as well on a run scored. So, yeah, again, that's the question they have to ask. If it's not going to be Freddie Freeman, then who? And Chris Taylor seems to be the obvious one. Thanks to everybody again joining us. We're over 3,000 people here. We got another super chat. Hi, I was at the game Friday at Citi Field. Trust me, Freddie looked that bad. He's limping on one leg. Teo and Will also lost and blind at bat. Yeah, let's talk Teo and Will because we just talked Freddie Freeman. And thank you for the eyes and ears, boots on the ground reporting there about Freddie Freeman and just confirming that, hey, it's as bad, if not worse, than maybe it looks on the television. Dave Roberts was asked about Teoscar Hernandez today, I believe, and talking about just his inability to catch up with the fastball. For all, I mean, Teoscar, I don't even know. I mean, Teoscar doesn't look close right now when he's swinging at pitches. It's just not competitive.
Yeah, and real quick, just to back up, I mean, I wasn't in New York, but we were invited to watch the game. The Dodgers didn't organize it. It was a Dodgers watch party at Cosm, and it was the first time I'd sort of experienced that type of setting. And the feed that we had was a camera that did stay on, like during commercials for TV, like it stayed on the field. And to this comment from Ty Wen, you could see Freeman really labor, like in between innings and at bats and stuff like that, just really laboring, which you hadn't necessarily seen. I know Blake has shared some of that when he's been at the games during the playoffs, but that's not something that we're really getting, with the Fox broadcast, because they obviously go to commercial, and unless they come back and show him, then it's not anything we're picking up. But yeah, there's validity to that. And that's why I do think, maybe just give Chris Taylor a chance. I know it's not a popular opinion, but if anything, you give Freddie Freeman 2 days of rest if, like I said, you want to look ahead to future games, which the Dodgers may or may not do at times.
Yeah.
To the Teoscar Hernandez point, honestly,
let me give you the numbers on Teoscar. 18 at bats, 9 strikeouts, 0 hits, does have 7 walks. So he's 0 for 18 with 7 walks and 9 strikeouts in this series.
Yeah, so we're missing the one more outcome from Teoscar to
Yeah,
be
exactly.
okay
It's a true outcome.
with his plate appearances. This ties back to people who've been with us for several years. The Cody Bellinger thing of, hey, like, you need to put the ball in play and give yourself a chance. Like, if you're up there striking out half the time, then there's not a whole lot that you can do for
Yeah.
yourself. And that's, I think, been the biggest thing is he's really just not making contact. And Dave said, fastball is giving him a hard time, and then off speed pitches and breaking balls and things like that are also getting by him. And yeah, I mean, it's been a struggle. And if he has 2 or 3 hits in the series instead of 0-4, like, the Dodgers probably have won it, depending on when those have happened, because he has been up at the plate in kind of timely sort of clutch scenarios. And oddly, when those have happened, like, you're aware that he's struggling. But I have felt like, okay, like, this is actually the time when he's about to break out. Hasn't necessarily happened yet, but it wouldn't be fully surprising if he does. I see people saying that, predicting he's going to hit a home run tomorrow. Like, that wouldn't fully shock me.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just thinking of the lineup right now, Matt. Ohtani and Mookie are going to hit first and second for the Dodgers. From there is where it gets interesting, because Teoscar is down bad. Will Smith is down bad. Freddie Freeman is down bad. And Max Muncy, who has been good, it's against a lefty with Sean Manaea on the mound. I think in some order, we could get Edman and Kike in the 3-4 spots behind Ohtani and Mookie. Do you think that's a fair guess?
I was going to say I could see
Maybe mix Muncy in the middle, but
I could see Edman moving up to third. I think they would. I don't think they'll drop Freeman if he's in the lineup. So I think
okay.
Freeman will be batting fourth. If he's in the lineup, he's going to be batting fourth, because that's the new kind of setup the new order the Dodgers have gone to since, I don't know, middle September or early September, whenever facing a lefty. In light of, like you're saying, Teoscar's struggles, it wouldn't shock me if they put Tommy Edman third, Freeman cleanup, maybe then Teoscar
crushes lefties.
I think he's still bottom of the order.
And I would be surprised if Freddie Freeman's hitting fourth. I'll be honest. As much as I just defended him being in the lineup, and I'll add this, I don't think you can put him all the way at the bottom, because you don't want Freddie Freeman clogging up the bases right in front of Mookie and Ohtani either. So you've kind of got to do this middle ground somewhere. But like, the Dodgers, one place they've gotten extremely aggressive is with lineup construction. And so I wouldn't be totally shocked if 3, 4, and 5 in some order were Edman, Kike, Pages. Like, that wouldn't surprise me. Muncy, those 4 mixing in, but I could see. I think this is going to sound crazy. I think there's a world, Matt, where 7, 8, 9 is Will Smith, Teoscar Hernandez, and Freddie Freeman in some order. Like, I don't think that's crazy.
I don't. It's not crazy. I just don't see them doing it.
Okay, so you're going Freddie Freeman fourth, Edman third, possibly.
Yeah. So let me see if I could keep my thoughts organized here. I think Ohtani leadoff.
Yeah.
Mookie second, Edman third.
Okay.
Freeman cleanup spot.
Okay. Kike or Muncy here?
Teoscar fifth.
Wow.
I think they like to do the right left right thing, and I
That's
know
gonna
that
infuriate some people.
I know that Mookie and Edman are back. Well, Edman's a switch hitter, so that's neutral. Teoscar fifth. Muncy sixth.
Kike
Smith.
You got a Kike.
So that's
somewhere.
where I know. So that's where
it's the lefty.
That's where it gets kind of tricky, right? Because you don't want to bury Kike at the bottom of the lineup, but I do think that there is value to that number 9 guy being somebody who is a threat to either turn the lineup over or extend an inning to then get Ohtani back up to the plate.
This guy hates Keektober. He's trying to put Kike down in the 9 spot. Are you guys hearing this?
No, there is a balance. There's a balance there, right? Like, yes, because
I agree.
If you put him that far down, obviously, the computers tell you that he's going to get fewer at bats. But is there the potential that even if it's 1 less than he might normally get, are they more like high leverage, kind of better scenarios that overall help the team? Like, that's something I think to be weighed.
It's going to be fascinating. I think the point is, from basically 3 through 9, and maybe Edman's in the 3rd spot, and we feel okay about that. But like, at least from 4 through 9, I would argue 3 through 9. I mean, you could give me just about any order. And there's an argument for, hey, Teoscar's been there all season. Will Smith's been there all season. Freddie Freeman's been there all season, as well as those three guys might be your 7th, 8th, and 9th best hitters on this night. Paul Hayes has crushed lefties. Kike has crushed lefties. I saw some people in the chat pointing out that Muncy, yes, not a great matchup against lefties, but he did get one off of Manaea in that game. And so there's a lot of different directions that they could go. And I find them interesting. Laker Toby with the super chat here. He said yesterday Roberts had a plan for game 6, and he was just hoping that game 5 would go differently. No matter what, he was not going to pivot. For his sake and ours, we better win tomorrow. Please, no game 7. Yeah, I mean, right? Like, it's kind of by making the case of we don't want to lose game 6 in the middle of game 5. What they did is they put all their eggs in the game 6 basket, sort of, knowing that game 7 exists. But they put all their eggs in the game 6 and game 7 basket, I guess is the way to put it. And I don't know. Like, do you think the players feel that sort of pressure to know that, like, hey, our manager handled things in game 5, believing that we could do this in game 6?
I don't think so. I don't think I mean, for better or worse, like I think they understand that there's 2 games for them to win one, and they take stuff one game at a time anyway, and so they're not even thinking about a game 7. And I don't think that I don't think anything Dave Roberts sort of did in game 5 with his decisions really like have much of an impact. Maybe the players were confused. I'm not saying they were. We have not heard any of this. Maybe internally, like they might have felt like, hey, like I would have done this instead of that, or tried this before that type of thing. But that's normal, I would say. And then I think, it was flushed away kind of on the plane ride back to LA, and they're not even thinking about it at this point. It's all about just winning game 6, which they would want to do if they were obviously down 3-2, but if they were up 3-1, like they wanted to win game 5, like I don't think the players necessarily change like how they're viewing things.
David says teams with a 3-1 lead and playing game 5 on the road have gone on to win the series 42 out of 49 times. Of course, he's describing the scenario the Dodgers found themselves in going into game 5. I will never shake the fact that the Dodgers in 2020 were down 3-1. And I know home road, it was neutral site, whatever you want to call it. I'm just saying in my head, 3-1 is not insurmountable. So I'm still, there's a bit of fear in the back of my head. Does it make you feel at all better, Matt, knowing that 86% of the time teams in the Dodgers situation, many of which those teams, by the way, were probably not nearly as good as this Dodgers team, but that 86% of the time a team in the Dodgers position ends up making it to the World Series?
No, I mean, I knew that being up 3-1 is a significant advantage anyway, and seeing 86%, like if it was 96%, I would say, oh man, like I didn't realize that it was that much. But yeah, to your point, we have seen, I mean, literally we covered the Dodgers coming back from a 3-1 deficit. As in other sports, as fans of other teams, we have seen it sort of happen. And I agree with you. Like it is a little tricky because if you win game 5, if you're down 3-1 and you win game 5, pressure shifts a little bit for that game 6. And then if you win game 6, then everything's like it's all equal on both teams at that point for a game 7. Like,
yeah,
everybody's going home like somebody's going home regardless of what happens that night. And so once you get it to a game 7, like that's I don't care about percentage at that point. It's like, man, anything can happen. A bad bounce here or there, and your season ends.
818 LA Rika says, I know he's probably never done this ever. Is there a world where 17 Ohtani drops down a bunt to start the game, considering it would pump the crowd up? 0%, 1%? Where are we at, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, to start the game, I don't see. And I mean, even to start the game 0 in any scenario, maybe 1%, depending on, like, it would have to be a very specific set of circumstances for Ohtani to do something like that I can't even come up with right now in my head. I think factoring into all that is we just went over kind of the lineup order and how many pieces could be moved around, in part because you have multiple guys struggling. So what are you really setting up for with, Ohtani bunting his way on there? And he's not stealing bases in the playoffs right now. We haven't seen that. So it's, it's not like it would be to just get him into scoring position or something.
I'm going to have to check on if a negative percentage is a real thing, but there's some people in the chat that seem to believe it is. So we're going to get the IT department on that one. We appreciate the super chat. And I agree that there would be a buzz if Ohtani gets on any way, shape, or form. And of course, without exactly remembering where the third baseman has been playing him, I would imagine there's room. I imagine the other team would be thrilled if Ohtani squared around a bunt. But let's hope for a home run. Let's hope for a home run in plate appearance number 1 instead of a bunt there. So, all right, let's get to some questions. We're nearing the hour mark, but we've got a little bit of time left. So if you've got any questions, throw those in the chat and send them our way. All caps questions in the chat, and we will get to as many of those as we possibly can. Again, we are here 24 hours before. Back to the no more weird day game times. That's the other good news. Just a normal time here in Los Angeles. So we've got that going for us as well. But about 24 hours away from the end of Game 6, and hopefully 24 hours from now on this very channel, there is a celebration happening. We can only hope. Noisy Ninja says, what about Muncy at first, Kike at third, Mookie at second, Pages in right, Kiermaier in center? Kiermaier and CT3 basically bring the same on offense, and Kiermaier is at least an elite center fielder. I would, as much as I am down on Chris Taylor, I'm not so far down that I think he's on Kevin Kiermaier's level offensively. I think Kevin Kiermaier is a genuine zero offensively. I think Chris Taylor is more than that. Defensively, the roles are completely reversed. I don't think Chris Taylor is quite a zero, but Kevin Kiermaier is an A+ defensively in center field. The biggest issue with the scenario you map out is, would the Dodgers really mess with this and put Mookie Betts back at second base? I lean no. I would just keep things simple. Let me put it this way. I don't think the gap between Kiermaier and Chris Taylor is big enough, if at all, to justify something as drastic as moving Mookie Betts to the infield. If Kevin Kiermaier were elite defensively, if this was like, how do we get Andy Pages into the game? Then I would say Andy Pages is worth moving some things around. Kevin Kiermaier is not.
Yeah, I agree. And honestly, before if I were the Dodgers, before considering kind of these types of scenarios, and Noisy Ninja, not that yours is not speaking about yours specifically, but just the different kind of options Jeff and I, in addition to yours as well. But I would, and we didn't touch on it, I would probably just start Gavin Lux at second base. Like, if that's the easy, like, if you're worried about Chris Taylor, like if Freddie Freeman can't necessarily play.
But Lux is hurt, right? Like Lux not playing is not a like facing a lefty decision. It doesn't sound like, right? I mean, you tell me.
I mean, Gavin Lux has not talked about his injury since it happened, and he said he was okay. He wanted to stay in the game, this and that, like kind of the stuff you would expect. I'm inclined to believe the way the Dodgers have handled everything that it is bothering him more than maybe has been publicly led on. All of that being said, like if he is okay to play theoretically, then I would just start him at second base if you don't necessarily want to go with Chris Taylor. Leave Andy Pages in center field, Kike Hernandez at third base, Max Muncy at first base. That's what I would do if Freddie Freeman's unavailable. But yeah, I don't necessarily see him doing it. The lefty, and I think the injury is also an issue. And real quick, before we continue, the Dodgers did just send out their media availability for tomorrow. And when they've done this in the past with the bullpen game, they list like the start time and first pitch and the starting pitchers. That's how we have kind of found out that it would be Ryan Brazier doing an opener. It's TBA right now. So they're still figuring things out as we record this at 10 p.m. the night before.
I love that. I like how you built up the suspense, and it's currently listed as TBA. It's nice. Yeah. It's nice. Good stuff. Good stuff. Eric wants to know, is there more negative regression coming for the bullpen?
Yeah, I mean, that's the concern. Not for everybody. I mean, I think maybe for one or two, but that is the concern. And that's something I touched on earlier. And that could be enough to send this to a game 7. But hey, Dodgers have planned on 2 to win 1. So they're perfectly fine.
Joe's asking the question I know you were waiting for. Does Austin Barnes start tomorrow?
No, I don't think so. And we didn't discuss this earlier, but Will Smith actually, so the Gavin Lux did pinch hit for Will Smith in the 7th inning of game 5. It ended up being because Dave Roberts wasn't 100% sure. He said either a foul ball or a swing got him. I think it was Francisco Alvarez's his backswing got Smith on his catching hand. And so he was giving him a little bit of trouble. And so Dave made the decision to just pinch hit with Lux there at that point. They did get x-rays. They are negative. So I think Smith will remain in the lineup.
And that was one of the things Dave mentioned, is that Will Smith is expected to be in the lineup tomorrow. There were 2 things that it feels pretty confident based on what Dave said, that Gavin Lux will not be in the lineup, that Will Smith will. Freddie Freeman, I would say, is 3rd on that list, and it sounds like he will be in the lineup. But we've heard Dave say one thing, and then tomorrow when he puts out the lineups, do the exact opposite. I think it was game 3. He basically said, we're going to keep the same lineup. And then he moved like 4 guys around in the lineup and 1 guy was out. So it was classic. OG Martinez, if we are down early, do we wave the white flag like last game, knowing that there's a game 7, or do we trust the offense to get back into it and go all in to win, risking that we could lose? Here's what I would say real quick on this one. The difference here is that they are coming off of an off day and they are not playing their third game in 3 days. So there is no wave the white flag scenario because there is no, oh, save this guy for tomorrow. I've said it. Like everybody, there's not a single pitcher in the bullpen who can't pitch the next 2 days. So pitching a guy or not pitching a guy in game 6 is not at all going to affect his availability. Now, if you want to say his effectiveness, maybe, but nobody's availability will be impacted by pitching in game 6 heading into game 7. That's my 2 cents.
I will say one, and it's probably just an oversight because it's easy to happen with this. Daniel Hudson, I don't know if he'll go back to back just because we already didn't see it once in this series.
That was game 2, though. Like I would like to think game 7's a different beast than game 2.
Fair.
But I think it's a fair point. So maybe Daniel Hudson is the one name to keep an eye on.
So
and we don't know any details about that.
No, yeah, we don't. Let's say it's 3-1. Mets are winning. 4th or 5th inning, and they hit a grand slam. Go up 7-1.
Oh, 7-1's a different story. That's not punting in my estimation.
Okay. All right, fine. Fair enough.
3-1, 4-1, I think all their best guys are coming in. You get to 5 runs or more, 7th inning or later. Yeah. Okay, do you disagree?
No. I just was one because you were saying you don't see any scenario, and I was just playing devil's advocate.
Yes,
but to your point at that, like if
they're down 5-1 in the 6th inning, the Dodgers are running out the exact same relief pitcher that they would have had in that moment if it were 2-1. Like I think they're treating that game the same way.
I don't know about that. That late, I think they might start looking ahead to who they're going to have ready to pack up Bueller.
We'll see. There will be some thoughts. Let's see. TQT. Dave Roberts has pushed most of the right buttons this October. However, if we lose this series, does his decision to punt game 5 cause him to lose his job? I don't know. It's always mysterious if it was you or Blake that was running the Dodger Blue moderator account in here last night. But whoever it was, when this question was asked, hinted at the fact that, hey, let's just remember that the way that they lined up their pitchers and who was going to come in when and how they handled some situations was at least going to be influenced by, if not decided in conjunction with the front office, meaning Dave Roberts wouldn't get fired for something that he and Andrew Friedman agreed on. I don't know if that was you or Blake. You don't have to reveal yourself. Do you think Dave Roberts could get fired if they lose this NLCS? After last week saying, no, his job is safe. They won the NLDS. He's good to go.
I don't think that he gets. I think that really the only scenario. So no. To short answer is no. I don't think that he gets fired if the Dodgers were to collapse and lose this series. Does it warrant, like Anthony said, maybe some conversations, perhaps? But again, like I know it's not ideal. It's not convenient. It's frustrating. But there are a lot of built-in excuses for this team that are valid, right? Like your top starting pitcher, arguably either 1A or 1B, is not available. Yeah. Your next best, your other 1A or 1B starting pitcher is limited right now because he's coming back from a significant injury. Clayton Kershaw was effective when he was healthy. Like he's somebody that they were counting on in the playoffs. Bobby Miller had a year to forget. Emmett Sheehan never took the mound this season. Like there's could go on and on and on. And those are factors. And like the Dodgers, when the playoffs started, I know you were on the more optimistic side than I was when, at the beginning of the NLDS, just looking at the landscape of the roster and who's hurt. And now, Freddie Freeman, we just spent 30 minutes discussing like
Gavin
what
Lux,
they should do with him. Gavin Lux, Miguel Rojas, like it just hasn't stopped. And so I don't think the NLCS is going to cost Dave Roberts his job if the Dodgers fall short, even understanding they were up 3-1 and this and that.
Yeah. Think about the fact that the Dodgers might be down 3 of their 9 first choice starters from a week ago. Like from a week ago, Rojas, Lux, and Freeman were your first base, second base, shortstop starting. And there's a chance that all 3 of those are out with injuries tomorrow and either not playing in the case of Rojas or not starting in the case of Freddie Freeman and Gavin Lux. Not to mention, you also lost Alex Vesia, who was one of your 4 best relief pitchers in between. I mean, like, to think from the NLDS to the NLCS, you lost 4 guys who are among the 10 most important players on your roster, 13 to 15 most important players on a 26-man roster is insane. Speaking of crazy, Kevin says it's crazy to think we are punting playoff games. Yeah, no disagreement here. We agree with you. Freedom, shout out to Freedom. If we can win without Freddie, the biggest issue is shutting down Manaea, but they will. Dodgers will play the Yankees even if it goes to a game 7. Give me your thoughts on Manaea, because again, I think there's a lot of Dodger fans that are have a healthy respect for Sean Manaea, and I seem to be more in the minority for believing that the Dodgers will get to him.
I mean, I don't know how he's doing it. I'll start off by that. Like, I watched. They had his game on when I was down in San Diego, and the Dodgers and Padres were waiting to play, and the Mets were playing the Phillies, or obviously the earlier game because they were on the East Coast, and so they had it on the TV. So I was watching it, and they threw up a stat. I don't know what he might have gone like 6 or 7 shutout innings. So I remember thinking, man, like, how is this guy doing that right now? Like, the last time I remember him pitching against the Dodgers he was awful and just not, hanging on, like hanging by a thread in the league type thing. Yeah. I think the Dodgers do excel. Every manager, player, pitcher says whenever a batter gets a second look at a pitcher, the advantage typically goes to the batter. So you have that. I think the Dodgers as a team typically tend to do well in these types of scenarios. Like you said, I think Manaea, he was certainly really good early on. I know he made Ohtani look pretty bad in his first, I think, 2 at-bats maybe. Yeah, definitely the first one. And so that's probably some of the concern there, which I can understand. But it wasn't like the Mets made a pitching change because there was some trouble. And I know you brought this up. Like, it wasn't, Manaea didn't go 7 shutout innings and they decided, great, thank you, we're turning it over to our bullpen now. They made a pitching change because they needed to. So, I think it's fair to believe that the Dodgers are capable of scoring 3, 4, 5 runs against him. Am I guaranteeing it's going to happen? No.
Yeah.
But could it? Yes. This isn't prime Randy Johnson.
Yeah. And to be clear, we know what changed. He changed his arm angle. I don't think anybody knows why changing his arm angle has made him, very, very good. I'll reiterate, 5 innings, 2 hits, 4 walks, 3 runs, 7 strikeouts was his line the first time against the Dodgers. If you give the Dodgers a second look at a pitcher, go look at what happens to a pitcher the third time he faces a lineup, right? It's not rocket science. Teams get much better. The Dodgers are going to be seeing him for a 4th, 5th, and 6th time in about a week. That's advantage Dodgers. I would expect his performance is going to be worse than it was the first time they saw him. I would also add, I was way more worried about Darvish in that game than I am about Manaea. And, Dylan Cease coming back on short rest, I'm not going to make that case. But, like, the Dodgers have faced some good pitchers, some pitchers that I was nervous about, and have had opportunities to get to those guys throughout. And so, I mean, I talked about, like, Luis Severino had been very good most of the season coming in, and the Dodgers got to him. And so I just think, I think they'll be fine. I think they'll be fine against Manaea. So we'll see. Maybe I look like an idiot and Manaea throws 7 shutout tomorrows, but we'll see. Let's get to a couple more questions. Los Dodgers says, do we even have enough pitching to beat the Yankees? They beat the Padres. I think the Padres are the best team in baseball, not named the Dodgers. So I think the Yankees are good. The Yankees are more talented. They scare me more than the Mets do. And the Mets are, giving the Dodgers a run for their money. But I've said all along, do they have enough pitchers against the Yankees? Probably not. Do they have enough hitters to beat them anyways? Yes, they do. That's my 2 cents. Jeff's got a question here, Matt. Who are the key relievers and against who in the game tomorrow?
Kopech, Treinen, Phillips.
It's probably just those 3, right? Because, I mean, again, even Bonda, the lefty, there's not really an obvious guy who gets killed by lefties anywhere in the Mets order, at least not among the big names. I've asked this question. I don't think you and I have had this conversation. Who in the Mets lineup scares you?
I mean, Lindor.
Yep. I said Vientos. Vientos scares me.
But with Vientos, it's like, just stop throwing him fastballs. Yeah, like there's a pretty easy fix to that problem. Like Yamamoto got a nasty swing and then decided to throw him a fastball.
I love
So
that one because John Smoltz was on the call and he throws the nasty breaking ball and gets a swing and miss. And Smoltz is like, "That's it. Just don't throw this guy fastballs." Next pitch, fastball up and in, or upper part of the plate, and just gets absolutely crushed. And it's like, well, curveballs, sliders only, please.
yeah.
I mean, is Alonso scary to you? He hit that ball that was actually a pretty good pitch, but other than that, he's been kind of worthless in this series.
Yeah, I mean, Alonso does just because like the pedigree and the power type thing, but I don't know. Look, I've been pretty open about being the low man on the Mets heading into this series, and
Yeah.
I really haven't seen a whole lot that's changed my opinion. And look, I know I think at least half of their wins this series are credited to Dave Roberts. So like I don't even think they've gotten too like on their own merit type thing. So yeah, I don't know. Their lineups, it's not overly imposing in my opinion.
Freedom with another super chat here. I would go Bueller deep in the game as he can then go all hands on deck. Game 6, it's ending tomorrow night. In regular season, we tore up the Yanks. Go blue. Yeah, I mean, Walker Bueller, some people were asking, is the projected starter for game number 7. So they'll go bullpen in game 6. Walker Bueller in game 7. He was very good the first time through. So it's possible that there's some confidence that the Dodgers have in his ability to get them through a game 7 as well.
Yeah, and this isn't like an either or scenario the way they approached game 2 where it could have been bullpen game or Walker Bueller. They're not going to bring Walker Bueller back on short rest to start a game 6. So he's not even an option for it's not like they're choosing again to do a bullpen game because they're coming out an off day. Maybe they feel like it's the best option. Like Walker Bueller starting a potential game 7 on like MLB's normal rest, which is different one day, at least one day shorter of what the Dodgers do, like that already is kind of pushing things for them. So there's no way they're going to move him up to a game 6 when it's not a do or die scenario for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, let's go out with this, Matt. I predicted the Dodgers to win this series in 6 games. I feel very good about my prediction right now because I believe that the Dodgers are going to win tomorrow. I believe that the bullpen is going to get the job done. And I'm going to say the Dodgers win game 6, 7-4 tomorrow night. Your prediction is what?
I think they also win just because this is baseball. And I said it on one of our other shows a while back. I don't know if the playoffs had started yet, or maybe we were right about to begin. I said, watch this be the year the Dodgers win the World Series because everything is sort of stacked against them. Like baseball can be funny that way. There's a lot of, concern and frustration and stuff. And so, yeah, I think the bullpen takes care of business. I think it's a 6-3 win.
6-3. Kevin says, if we make the World Series, I don't think we beat New York. And on the flip side, Freedom says, hell yes, we're coming for you, Yanks. So there you go. Who knows? I mean, look, I keep saying it. I think the Padres were the best team the Dodgers were going to face. So once they got through them, I felt as good as you could possibly feel about how this thing goes. But both Matt and I both have the Dodgers winning tomorrow. So you've got that going for you. Maybe that's positive. Maybe that's negative. I'll point out, I said Dodgers in 5 in the NLDS. That was correct. So hopefully 2 series in a row, we can nail that. And I can assure you my World Series pick will begin with Dodgers. So let's just keep the momentum rolling on me making some positive predictions here. As Matt said, once we're done here, please stay here, subscribe, ring the notification bell, but check out Dave Roberts, all of his comments on Freddie Freeman, Gavin Lux, and of course, all of the pitching stuff, including Shohei Ohtani's base running stuff. I mean, Roberts talked about it all. So that's worth checking out. And then make sure you're back here tomorrow night. We will be here live after the Dodgers hopefully win and clinch their ticket to the World Series. We can only hope. So that is Matthew Moreno. I'm Jeff Spiegel. Enjoy the rest of your night, folks. As always, go Dodgers.